Hello and welcome to WNHH Radio's Dateline New Haven. I'm your host, Paul Bass, inviting you to look behind the headlines on the stories that make our community tick. Once again, there's so much going on in New Haven right now, so many stories in the Independent, so much interesting stuff being said about the news by the readers of the Independent, that the stars of today's show, again, are the inimitable commenters in the Independent. Their passionate, provocative reactions to our news stories breathe life into our city's civic debate. We're going to read some of the most interesting comments of the past day with breaking news in town, interspersed with local music, songs by some of New Haven's recording artists, like the Afro-Semitic Experience, which is playing Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah the Prophet, in the background right now. And I'm joined by Harry Drost, New Haven Independent Station Manager. He was technically recuperating yesterday at home.
Thank you.
In Waterbury, although he's hooked up this whole system so well that he's able to still help run the station from a distance, fix problems, make things work, and put in his incisive comments.
I try.
All right. So Harry and I are going to read some comments about some stories that are breaking, and then commented on themselves. And as I said, we'll intersperse that with some local tunes. So, Harry, the big news today in Connecticut, obviously, as we speak, is that the governor is unveiling his first big budget. A lot in there. Everything from taxing sugary drinks to not raising the taxes on the wealthy to maybe having tolls on the highways. He's briefing reporters on it, or has been for the last half hour, and he's making his big address at noon. The story we had, Harry, was an angle on it that we read nationally about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and the Progressive Caucus and how they're trying to push both their own party, because a lot of people don't agree with them in their own party, and the government at large to shift some of the tax burden back on the rich. Because we now have much lower taxes on the rich proportionally than we did after Ronald Reagan, a conservative anti-tax president, lowered tax rates. So these crazy socialists, as people call them, want to return to the days of Richard Nixon, that long-haired crazy guy. So anyway, our story was how I would say the closest analogs to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez around here are our local state reps, Robin Porter and Josh Elliott. They're active in the Progressive Caucus.
Yeah, but what I love about Lamont is that everybody's stealing from Cortez, right? Mm-hmm. So now his budget proposal, or whatever you want to call it, is really the start of a conversation. Mm-hmm. He's not saying anything's going to happen. Just like Ocasio-Cortez's Green New Deal.
No, the difference between that, Green New Deal gave general principles. Lamont today is putting ideas on paper. You're right, it's the beginning of a conversation, but he's taking a stand. He's saying they're going to try to repeal the estate tax. You don't even pay taxes on estates here until they're $3.6 million. He has made it clear, no proposal on raising taxes on the wealthy. He's made it clear, as a hedge fund guy, chief of staff, corporate predator from Goldman Sachs, economic development chief. I mean, this is class warfare.
Is that his full title?
Yeah. And they are split. So that's what was emerged yesterday in the interview with Robin Porter and Joshua Elliott. And they would like to see income tax rates be higher on the very wealthy. So we're now top rate of 6.99% in Connecticut on income. They're saying if you're a couple earning $1 million or more, or an individual earning $500,000 a year or more, they'd like to see the marginal rates, meaning on that income above that, be what they are in New York, which is 8.97 or close. And
yeah, but what does that include? Does that include the small business person at $500,000 a year?
There's this thing about marginal rates, Harry. Only on that next dollar. Not in his first $500,000.
I understand, but the problem is that they're never looking at the real liabilities of these people just touching those limits, and what it entails.
We don't have marginal rates, and they were agreeing that we should, meaning that just touching that limit, you're okay until you go above. Just the parts above the limit get taxed, not the part below the limit.
Yeah. The next dollar, right?
So I'm not arguing for it. I'm just saying that they're taking a stand. We have that. And why don't we read what some of the people had to say about it? Harry, why don't you read the comment from Noteworthy on this article about state Democrats split on taxing the 1%?
All right. noteworthy on February 19th, 2019. All right. Porter's comments about having the rich struggling paycheck to paycheck is stupid and arrogant.
Porter had said that, people say if you tax the rich too much, they'll leave. They're struggling. She says the real people struggling are the people she represents in Southern Hamden and in New Hallville, New Haven, who are working 3 jobs and still can't save money.
Well, she sounds like Ocasio-Cortez too.
Yes,
everybody
that's what I'm
has
saying.
2 or 3 jobs. Those so-called rich people pay the lion's share of the income taxes, a nearly 11 billion line item. One would think that Porter would have gotten that much through her head by now.
Okay, what Noteworthy didn't get through his head, he didn't read the article. Porter said, we know that, but then if you combine all the taxes you pay in the state, because we pay a lot of property tax, right? So they pointed to a study by the State Department of Revenue Services that says when you combine what people pay in state property and income tax, if you're a low-income earner but you pay taxes, you pay 3 times as much of your income in state taxes than a rich person. So if you're getting $45,000 a year, family, right?
You're saying percentage-wise.
Yeah, 22% of your income, if you're making $45,000 a year, goes toward paying combined state taxes, not just income. And if you're over $500,000, you're only paying 7% of your income. Anyway, why don't you keep telling us more about what Noteworthy had to say before I
don't know if I agree with all of that, but the poor and lower income, point number 2, the poor and lower income are moving in. It's the rich who are already moving out. The last study I saw made note of the $6.5 billion in income that left the state in 1 year, and the $3 billion in income that replaced it. That's not a winning formula. You want to comment on that?
No, let's let him. I'll stop interjecting.
Elliott and Porter are focused on revenue to the state. Tolls, pot tax, love it, pot tax. More income tax, more sales tax, more property tax, nothing but tax. This is not a winning formula either. Point number 4, these issues are also complicated, not just because of the politics, but the policies are too. Their effort to do a bum's rush belies that ignorance of the subject matter, and that ignorance will kill us. Ooh.
Well, 7 minutes after he wrote that comment, Anonymous posted this comment yesterday late afternoon. More progressive taxes could help fund decent transportation infrastructure, connecting our cities, as well as better access to preschool. These improvements would create far more wealthy people and employers than the number that would leave due to slightly higher taxes. And that's the argument, Harry. Some people say, well, if you tax the states, people move to Florida, we lose all their tax revenue. If you tax high income people anywhere near what you tax poor middle class people, they're going to leave. We need their income tax. The other argument is that other states that have high income taxes, like New York, Massachusetts doesn't have higher income taxes, but they have a similar tax burden. Rich people and their companies are actually moving there. So the argument is that if you raise enough tax revenue to make your roads good, if you're investing in tech infrastructure, that will make them go there. I
wouldn't agree with that, because New York, what they have is these new green and tax-free zones. So the businesses that are moving there, they'll be gone in 10 years.
They're just saying that the net rich people moving out does not happen. The 7 last states
because
that
New York
is
losing a lot of businesses also. Now these businesses are the businesses that don't get the favored green tax or something like that. So New York is losing business to Texas and Florida.
Harry, do you want to read the comment posted 3 minutes later than that by AMDC?
Okay, the Dems are peeing their collective pants because not everyone knows that they are bought and paid for by the corporations. Why do people not understand this? Both parties are corrupt corporate creatures. I agree. Unless we get a real option of other parties, it will be business as usual across the state and people will flee. If they can.
1644 read that comment and an hour later in 7 minutes posted this. AMDC, the Connecticut Dems are bought and paid for by the public employee unions, both state and town unions. That's why Malloy decided to shift over $500 million in debt from Hartford to the state. Lamont himself basically sealed the Democratic nomination by promising the unions everything they wanted. Some candidates with a more left-wing history refused to do. It's true, but he's already gone back on one of those promises where he said he wouldn't ask for any givebacks. He has. What does Wendy One have to say?
Minimum wage should be. I tell you, some people are just so unrealistic.
This Wendy's running for mayor.
Minimum wage should be $30, and of course, the 1% should be taxed much more. The state house is a pool of sharks so far. That needs to change.
Callisto was up early this morning, Harry, 6:55 a.m., posting this. There is a crisis in this country as the middle class slowly but surely evaporates. And the prescription is continue to widen the already obscene wealth gap so hedge fund managers don't move. Great plan. This shop war disingenuous narrative is as pathetic and obvious as those who peddle trickle-down economics. An hour later, 7:50 a.m., 16:44.
I have to comment on Callisto. So, you're telling me he actually, or she actually thinks that the middle class is disappearing. Actually, the middle class is shifting, and you have more people, more from the poor entering the middle class, and more from the middle class entering the top 10%.
No, but Harry, the buying power of the middle class has, for the first time, I think, in our history, lost ground in the last generation.
Well, look, we're always.
That's why Trump and Sanders both did well last time, is because people genuinely saw their standard of living lower.
The standard of living, I wouldn't say, is lower. And I argue this with some loon liberals all the time about, look how many poor people are in America. The poor in America are privileged. They live rich compared to the poor.
No question.
Across
they
the
live
world.
better in the question of the world. The real question has been, Harry, that people in the middle who are working sometimes one or two jobs, they feel it's harder to make ends meet, and they're often one paycheck away with less protection.
It is because the people that, let me tell you, we always say we're going after the rich. We never go after the rich.
Right.
You know, because even if we proclaim to go after the rich, let's assume that Ocasio-Cortez's 70% tax goes into effect. You know how much of that money is going to get moved and shuffled around so that they don't pay? The rich always have an escape hatch.
Right.
The middle class never has an escape hatch.
Gary Winfield said that. He's a legislator who does want to attack the rich more from New Haven, but he said he was talking to some rich guy the other day. The guy said, you know what? I don't care what laws you pass. We'll always find somewhere to put the money where you can't touch it. But the truth is, you're right about that. Like when they estimate how many would come in with that tax or Elizabeth Warren's asset tax, but you still get more money. I mean, we did used to tax people at more, and we did get more money. It's no question that people find.
No, actually, there's more revenue now than there was then. The problem is, and let me tell you, when the tax was 70% before Kennedy lowered it, right? When it was that high, there were so many loopholes, they didn't pay anything. They were paying around 14%.
So one argument is to close loopholes. The other argument is you can never close enough.
You're never going to close them.
But anyway, you know, you responded to Callisto, Harry. So did 1644, again at 7:50 a.m. this morning. Boy, the debate was going early. So what did 1644 say back to Callisto?
Callisto. Does the wealth gap bother you so much that you are willing to reduce government revenue? And therefore government services to reduce it? It's fair to assume that those hedge fund managers didn't get so wealthy by paying more taxes than they had to. They use legal tax avoidance techniques like taking earned income as capital gains by calling it carried interest. Yeah, that's true. Look, we do need to get rid of a lot of this stuff. I hate all of these loopholes also. The empirical evidence is that when taxes are increased, enough of them leave the state to lead the revenue to lead to revenue losses. Remember, only about 400 taxpayers pay 12% of the state taxes. Budget. Hold on. Budget. So it doesn't take a lot of families to decide to leave to create a huge budget gap. If we don't like wealth gaps, we could return our society to that of a hunter-gatherer clans. Yeah. Similar to some of the homeless encampments who have no concept of private property. We would all be equally poor, be blissfully happy in a state of nature. That's what, I've been saying this for a while.
Talking about blissful. As we read the comments, the best of the comments from the New Haven Independent on Dateline New Haven and WNHHFM 103.5, live streamed at newhaven.org. I get blissful just reading these comments, coming from left, right, in the middle. Someone like 1644 who knows so much. Sometimes I agree with him, sometimes I don't. He really knows his stuff. I love that. I think it's great to have that passion and debate.
There's a good example right now, Venezuela, right?
Right.
And we could all suffer together. If we all want to be the same, we'll all be suffering together.
So that's what one side says. But you know what Steve Mednick says? He says that corrupt people are buying the government, and we got to do something about it. He asks, what are you going to do? What you going to do? So let's listen, because we're doing comments from the commenters interspersed with local musical recordings. Steve Mednick, the album isn't quite out yet, but he previewed it on Dateline New Haven. It's called Enough. Track 1 is What You Gonna Do?
What you gonna do? We're living in a horror story. Black jacket cops storm American school. Anguished parents press at the corner, wondering if they'll see their children soon. As the media pulled their tripod, chasing the same story as it was the first time. What you gonna do? As we reach the point of no return, we're in the center of the storm, time's running out. I got my ear to the ground, listen for the wound in the universe. While searching for a place called hope, we took a turn to a place called fear. When is this gonna stop? What are you gonna do? What you gonna do? Look at my eyes, cause the blood is on your hands. This has become the new normal. Why does this happen in our freedom land? Once every 60 hours, we lose more children in their schoolyards. When is this gonna stop? What are you gonna do? Are you gonna save our children? What are you gonna do? No more guns. No more guns. No more prayers. No more prayers. No more silence. No more silence. you gonna do?
What you gonna do? Those crooks in the halls of Congress. Blown out of the water by Steve Mendick on his new album, soon to be released. Previewed here at Dateline New Haven on WNHH FM. The album is called Enough. Today's show, we are reading comments from New Haven independent commenters on breaking news. We're not breaking the mainstream media till Harry Jaros takes the microphone on the main show. But Harry is joining me here to read aloud some of the best comments from the last couple of days in the independent and commenting on those comments. Harry, another story is that New Haven government might join a national bandwagon. And also, Ned Lamont wants to do this too. They want to raise the age the way Massachusetts has, the way Hartford has. What age you're allowed to buy tobacco products? Not just cigarettes, but the big thing is the e-cigarettes, the Juuls, that the companies, the tobacco companies appeared to be on the ropes, though they really weren't, in their profits for years with the anti-smoking campaign. Fewer people were smoking. Their strategy always is to hook teenagers when their brains are the most susceptible to becoming lifelong addicts. They found a new way with these Juul and other e-cigarettes, and they're getting people hopelessly and painfully addicted. And I don't know whether it works or not to ban the sale till they're 21. But New Haven now has a proposal from Delphine Clyburn, alderwoman from New Hallville, to raise the age to 21 for purchase of all tobacco and nicotine products in New Haven. Harry, let's see what some of our commenters had to say that. I saw that Bill Saunders got right on it when the story came out the other afternoon at 3:57. What did he have to say?
Bill Saunders. I remember when I was in high school, from 1979 to 82, students could smoke in the central courtyard at the age of 16 with a parental permission slip. Wow, I didn't know that. It's amazing.
I remember that era. That's when I was in high school.
It's amazing that the social progress regarding nicotine is one hell of a drug. Serious statement. It is.
Yeah,
nicotine, and look, let me tell you, that's the problem with vaping for these teenagers, because they feel that the tobacco's gone, but it's nicotine in the e-juice, the e-cigarette juice.
Well, you've read the stories where they now get so addicted they have it tied and rubber band to their bed by the drawer, so they get it the second they wake up, and it's terrible. And they get their brains that way for life. I mean, those companies are evil, Harry.
Look, let me tell you.
They're the worst drug pushers in America.
They started off with just the flavoring and everything. Then they started adding the nicotine. And everybody was like, well, 1% nicotine, that's not bad. 2% nicotine. And it started going higher and higher. And that's pure nicotine into that e-juice.
I know. It's even more efficient of what they call
even worse
delivery
device
insane than the cigarettes. So Elm City Lover weighed in 2 minutes later. Elm City Lover said, if someone is old enough to vote and elect the leaders of our city-state nation, they should be mature enough to make their own decisions about tobacco use. I totally understand and appreciate the desire to eliminate smoking. But attempts to control behavior beyond criminal acts that deprive others of life property, that's government overreach. I find our law in terms of, quote, ages, voting, military, driving, guns, alcohol, tobacco, work, to be completely inconsistent and arbitrary. Bill Saunders jumped back on. What did he have to say, Harry?
By the way, I agree with Elm City.
Yeah, I kind of lean toward him too.
Elm City Lover. These dueling standards have been around forever. The only vice that is going to be left for teens is R-rated movies. Sneaking in with a rush. What a rush. Come to think of it, the parental permission slip worked pretty well, and maybe that idea should be revisited. Sounds like I might have just invented an app.
Cunningham weighed in. Cunningham wrote, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. These laws should not be framed as restricting an individual's right to purchase tobacco, but denying businesses the ability to get young people addicted to poison. I see his point. It's like the marketing techniques that are geared toward youth. That does become a slippery slope as well.
I see what he's saying.
Flavors and all that.
But still, what Elm City Lover is saying is still in effect, right? It's not. The framing is just the propaganda.
Yeah. So how about over the river, through the hood? What is that
Over the
person was like?
river and through the hood.
I love the
right?
names some people
I
use.
know. You can't tell someone they are adult enough to vote, do porn, get married, and serve and possibly die for their country's military, and then turn around and tell them that they can't handle tobacco. Quite frankly, the drinking age is BS. 2. Make it 21 for everything, or 18, but it has to be one or the other. No cigarettes for you, but here's a tank to go invade Afghanistan.
You know what's kind of interesting
It's
about
true.
that? Because I think they figure when kids, when males especially, but young people, when they're 18, their brain is not fully developed, and they are more aggressive, they're more reckless, and sometimes people think that's good for a soldier. Remember Saddam Hussein used to like amp them up with cocaine to just be kind of crazed? But you don't want that. I don't think males should be driving till they're 25. You know, I really believe that, Harry, because of how reckless, and it's males versus females. And when you're making decisions about tobacco that will, your brain is not fully developed and ready to handle, and you become addicted for life. I agree with all these people that it isn't consistent. It's kind of crazy, but you kind of understand why it gets that way, because you're at different levels of your life. You're at different stages of maturity and different stages of being able to make certain decisions.
Yes, but I think it's all about our society's expectations at that age, right? You look at our founding fathers, our framers, and they were all young pups,
Yeah.
right?
So you sound like Pete Buttigieg, that we need. He's 37, running for president, and people are saying we need a younger generation. Justin Elicker says, "Vote for me for mayor because it's time for a younger generation."
Well, I wouldn't say we need this younger generation, because they're a
don't sound
bunch
like-
of
Oh, you're
crazies.
sounding like an old fogey, Harry. Come
no.
on.
I'm just saying.
That's what they said about us.
The problem is that you expect what we expect from these kids, right? We're teaching them garbage in school, right? There's no civics in public education
We do need
anymore.
more civics. Denise Merrill, Secretary of State's right on that. I'm with her. We need to get
Yeah,
civics.
we need to teach these kids how to be more responsible at that age.
We have a
They-
couple high schools. The Metro Business
There
Academy,
used
high
to
school.
there
in the
used to be
community.
driving education in high school, right?
remember
There
that.
used to actually be gun ownership in high school. How to take care of your gun, how to be safe. The problem is
a
that
little dicey here.
well, it seems a little dicey, but let me tell you, it would actually help if you teach people how to respect.
That is one argument I've heard. You know, if the people in the gangs could shoot better, they would kill more of the people they aim to kill, though. But they wouldn't get. They'd have fewer random victims.
They'd respect their weapon.
Well, Hugh Navin also weighed in, Harry. Hugh Navin said, "Missed the target. The single biggest reason kids continue to pick up a smoking habit is because they're told it's something only grown-ups should do. Finger wag. Guess what happens next?" But what happens is that we're reading some of the best comments from commenters to the New Haven Independent on WNHH-FM's Dateline New Haven, in the voice of Harry Droz, who is the inimitable. We're also playing local music by local artists. And Harry, we're going to queue up the video as well, in case you're watching on Facebook Live or YouTube or Periscope. Is Periscope also visual, Harry?
Yep, Periscope,
Okay. And Twitter, even there's some visual on
Twitter, Twitch, streaming.
We're going to play Tabiza, one of my favorite New Haven artists, with Vula, which is such a great song and great video. I know we played it yesterday, high rotation, along with Steve Mendick's new one. Take it away, Tabiza.
Ditibula, Dian Os, Ditibula, 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 Dian Os, Onabo Toti, Onabo Olaita, Nabo Toti, Bayan Suye. Gong 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 Kau bulelo mnyango wako, kau bulelo sango lako, kau bulelo dingene bo. Ai kau bulelo mnyango wako, kau bulelo sango lako. Ai ani sugela toti bo. Yeah. Gong 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 gong. Scum diggy diggy down. Scum diggy diggy down. Scum di dabu do 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 dabu. Scum diggy down. Scum diggy down. Scum di dabu do 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 dabu. Au bulelo mnyango wako, kau bulelo sango lako, kau bulelo dingene bayandi sukela bo. Yeah. Kau bulelo mnyango wako, kau bulelo sango lako, kau bulelo dingene. Gong 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 gong. Ay wo. Gong 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 gong. Whoa.
And that's Tabiza, Westville's own. She was back in her native South Africa, filming that video, recording Boule. Boy, I love that song and that video. And thanks for sharing it and enjoying it with us here on Dateline New Haven at WNHH FM 103.5 FM, live streamed at newhavenindependent.org and on many other web platforms known almost only to Harry Droz. Harry Droz is here with me this morning as we're reading some of the best comments from New Haven, most interesting comments from different points of the political spectrum on the latest hot news that's been breaking and reported in the New Haven Independent. Harry, one of the big news stories was last night at the Board of Education. They gave people a preview of the picture for what budget cutting is going to be for the next year. There's a $30 million budget deficit. That no matter what happens, there are going to be deep cuts. And part of their plan relies on trying to get an extra $10 million from the state. It was going to be tough. Governor Lamont this morning is showing his budget proposal, which actually calls for cities to start contributing part of the teacher pensions, although not as much in poorer cities as wealthier cities. So they were showing, schools would close and that 172 teachers, they got that specific, 172 teachers would lose their jobs if that state money doesn't come through. Big deal.
It's incredible, right?
And of course, everybody says, get the administrators. And outside of assistant principals, who sometimes are more needed than you think, they never really tell you who these vague administrators are who can all go. I'm sure you some camp, they always think that's a magic wand to get rid of $30 million. I mean, if you get money, you have to have an administrator who monitors the money and writes the reports to the state. If you're going to hire teachers, you need an administrator who hires teachers. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure you could always cut fat, but there's always this mythical, oh boy, it's easy for people who aren't in the mix and try to make decisions day to day to just say it's easy. But we got some comments from people who've been thinking about it. I mean, you see Harry where I say up to 172 teacher layoffs loom? You want to let us know what AMDC, that's someone sometimes who does kind of shoot from outside, but you wanted to see what AMDC have to say about the prospect of 172 teacher layoffs.
Unless we get costs under control, it will break the city. If we do some of the items suggested, like cut staff and increase class sizes, it will make NHPS unattractive to the suburbs, and we will lose their dollars. Money, diversity, racial isolation is the focus, and we have broken the bank to lure others to our district.
I think the point there was that we have these racial quotas to meet in schools, or sometimes that perverse results, which you want to have diverse schools, but then you're discriminating against black suburban kids because you need white suburban kids in the slots. But what he's not pointing out, or she, is that the reason the city did that, maybe wasn't smart long term, is that we actually spent less of our money in the city if we can get state money to build a school. But the state said we'll only do it if it's a magnet with this diversity goal. And then after a bunch of years, you're on the hook for letting the suburbanites in and for meeting the costs. But in the short term, we got $1.6 billion that wasn't our taxpayer money to build and renovate schools.
Yeah, and those are the problems, right? They never seem to look towards the future and what it's going to do to their budgets in the future.
Partly our political system, I think, which is that you run for office every 2 years, you have a result to show then, and partly because we have this property tax reliance in our state, where cities like New Haven, you've heard this a million times, we can't tax half our 54% of our property, so we're kind of always hustling to get the money where we can, even if there are unpleasant strings attached to it.
Yeah.
Well,
always harming the property owner, right? It's always the same thing.
1644 responded to AMDC, Harry. AMDC, maybe the remaining Catholic schools will see an increase in enrollment. They used to be the low-cost alternative to NHPS, cheaper than Foote or Hopkins. I think given what we're reading about the Catholic Church these days and the whole decline of the church in general and the closing of schools that he referred to, not sure it'll work. Says how many assistant principals are there today? Brantford has only 2 assistant principals this high school for years. You want to scroll down to what Jill the Pill had to say, Harry?
Jill the Pill. The state legislature annually underfunds the ECS commitment, guaranteeing a gaping hole in basic educational services. Then they come in with restricted funding like Alliance that can buy all sort of extraneous foolishness. A climate specialist. They got a climate specialist?
They don't mean like outside what the weather's like. They mean like what the school.
A continuous improvement specialist, but never fill in that hole. It's failure by design. Alliance and other grants should be allowed to supplant basic services to pay for the boring, necessary stuff like teachers, textbooks, test tubes, and toilet paper.
I think Jill has some really interesting points there. Alliance is like, well, your school's not doing well. They have special grants to make it better. And they say, well, we're going to, sort of like the rich people are sometimes with philanthropy. Sometimes they say, we'll give your organization just money to run. But other times they say, we're going to fix it, make it better by like, the money's going to go to more specific things we're looking at that make fundamental changes and make it run better so you have longer. Which sounds kind of good in retrospect. What Jill's saying is that the Alliance program, you get a school like, let's say, Lincoln Bassett, gets all these Alliance dollars, but that doesn't go into the needed money necessarily for the books you don't have.
Right, it gets earmarked for certain
like
things,
something
right?
like climate specialist, which doesn't sound as crazy if you're in the room coming up with a plan. You say, like, in some of these schools, we have to look at what the building's like for the teachers. And I don't mean the air, although once in a while that was a case of Jackie Robinson. But, like, you know what it's like to be in this school in other ways. It could be a better place. And, like, while that's nice if you have lots and lots of money, I think Jill's point is that when we have a system in our state, and he was talking about ECS, that's Educational Cost System, the basic system by which we allocate dollars to schools. When it's so screwed up, and even a state judge said he ended up not being right on appeal, that unconstitutional, but he was right that it was sick. that the state takes money from poor districts like Bridgeport and sends it to wealthier districts like Westport in order to get votes for larger bills from suburbanites who legislature. As a result, you don't have the basic money, and then they say, well, we'll give you the special money if you'll fix what we think are the underlying problems, when one of the underlying problems might be just basic resources.
What's the average class size for schools in
New Haven? I think it's in the
Haven.
mid-20s, but I'm not sure.
Mid-20s? Oh.
But some people say that's not, some people say that class size isn't the issue. I'm not sure. These are
we should
questions
go
well beyond my
we should
expertise.
go up to 40 like California.
I mean, it's how it's run sometimes rather than what you do within the class. Like, there's this whole idea about new models with these chairs that have wheels on them, and the teacher goes around, have people working in groups.
The teachers have such a hard job these days.
They do.
Because you're stuck with, especially with all of the immigrant influx that comes in. You have like 20 different languages in a class. None of them are fluent in English, and the teacher has to support all of those.
That's why
students.
some of the basics, the definition of basics does need to be expanded. I agree with Jill, the pill that you need basics as opposed to like climate specialists sometimes, but you do need people to help with the language. So one teacher, if you have 40 students and they have a bunch of languages, someone's helping you out with that, or a couple of behavior problems, somebody's helping you with that so you can teach the rest. So I don't know. J.E. Padilla says,
hard work.
We need more, wrote in his comment, we need more teachers in the classroom and fewer administrators in central office. What about maximizing revenue by shifting more programs to grant-funded sources like they're proposing? Who thought that one up? New programs will be at the mercy of 3-year funding cycles instead of some semblance of stability. In fact, he's right. That happened with this improvement grant we had that ran out. The Board of Education was appointed to oversee the school system, not run it. So do your jobs in terms of oversight and work with the superintendent to come up with a plan that will address these very serious financial issues. There are hard decisions to be made, so start making them. New Haven taxpayers are not an unlimited source of money for the schools. And while you're at it, stop waiting for $10 million from the state. It's not coming. Harry, what did Observer 1 say after that?
Nobody is going to clean house at the top-heavy Board of Education. Too much money and political patronage involved, especially in an election year. The city leadership has been corrupted by a lack of term limits. Hold on, I can't read this. Which builds in the need to dispense patronage. The folks that keep electing these. Hold on, sorry, Paul, my paper's folded here. Parasites. Oh, that's a good word. The folks that keep electing these parasites.
It's a mean word. They're not parasites.
Feed on the crumbs that fall off the table, while the folks at the table feast on the real stuff. If I am cynical, it is because I am old enough to have seen this happen all the way back to Dick Lee, who destroyed our neighborhoods in the name of progress. This used to be a great city to live in. Now we have the upper class, the working poor, and a bunch of yearlies in the middle, most of whom will be gone in 4 years. We are deluding ourselves if we really believe anything will change. History teaches me, not us. History teaches me it will not change. The names and faces change, but the show goes on forever. It does not matter who is in charge, white, black, brown, or a mixture of thereof. New Haven, like Connecticut, has spending problems because everybody buys votes, gets elected, and then spends even more money to get reelected. We, the people, have met the enemy, and they are us.
That's one view on the world, Harry Drost, as you're reading comments from New Haven Independent readers on Dateline New Haven, 103.5 FM, livestreamnewhaven.org. Then there's a positive view from the local band Suburban. They have an album that's been out a while called Everybody Knows. And they have a more, I guess because they're younger, I'm guessing, because they're still in college age, these folks. They have a song called If You Want to Fly. Let's take a listen to that, Harry, and see if we might have a more upbeat view on our prospect.
Yeah. If you wanna fly, if you wanna fly, yeah. Oh, to fly high above the trees. Being in the plane to me is just a tease. The calm of the clouds, the feel of the breeze. Life from up here just seems at ease. And any location could be our destination. No long travel or endless waiting. Down there there's hate, down there there's panic. And even though they try to explain, I'll never understand it. So just keep your eyes fixed on the horizon. Before you said to land, now you're saying to fly. The slingshot, no strings, only thing you got is my shoulder. You're down in hesitation, weighing down like boulders. Don't worry, we gon' get there. I told you, so just keep your eyes shut and hold on till it's over. So I spend every night with my eyes shut tight, praying that maybe one day I too could take flight. If you wanna fly with me, keep an open mind and ski. Open up your eyes and see. If you wanna fly with me. One night at my window sat a strange man. I asked his name and he told me he was Peter Pan. He started telling me about this place called Neverland, where you never age. And every day is a blank page, everything's an adventure. Oh, he said, I forgot to mention, I know that you will come, and please allow me to tell you why. If you choose to come with me, then I will teach you how to fly. I was so fucking excited I wanted to cry, but he disappeared and reemerged out of the corner of my eye, handed me a contract and a pen, told me to read and take my time and to sign on that dotted line. I said, nah man, I'm not trying to be famous. I'd rather be with my fam, making art remaining nameless. Because to me, this is the definition of flying. What he was doing was selling dreams and just lying. If you wanna fly with me, keep an open mind.
That's If You Wanna Fly. One of the great local bands up and coming. Get a name for itself, Suburban. They got that great combination, two brothers. Grew up together making music, anticipating each other's moves. One raps, one sings. Opera sometimes, but he's not that band. Love it. And we're hearing it on Dateline New Haven. 103.5 FM Live. Streamed at newhavenindependent.org. We're running near the end here, Harry Dross. We're reading... Harry and I are reading some comments
By
from
the way,
stories.
Happy to see Ruth Bader Ginsburg back at work.
You are?
Yes, I am.
Excellent. Me too. Harry, I thought we'd really shift gears here on a kind of story that gets lost a little among the hubbub, but people do care about. In Wooster Square, there's a little lot that's a parking lot at Olive and Green Streets. And I thought it was really interesting the way our readers are talking about this. There's one guy, Andy Casiglia from Neighborhood, who wants to build a house there, but every time it's in a historic district, he needs approval from a historic commission. Every time they come, they don't really have anything in the drawing about what it's really going to look like. So they say, go back to the drawing board, start over. The neighbor gets upset. But it is interesting about what you do with this one piece of property there. It became a discussion about the vision for the neighborhood, which is one of the great neighborhoods in New Haven, Wooster Square. So I want to read what people were saying about what should be the future of this lot, the Olive Green Street lot. AMDC weighed in on this one too, Harry. What did AMDC say?
Can it be turned into a lovely little city green space with bee attracting flowers cared for by the Wooster Square Association? It's so crowded there, and plenty of apartments are going up down the street. Can we please think about humans and nature for a bit?
Ryan 111 swung back and wrote, AMDC, do you have land you own and would like to pay taxes on for this cause? If so, please share the parcel location. The dislocation in the city is amazing. We have a housing affordability task force calling for more housing. We have a huge deficit and need more tax revenue. And we have a historic district commission preventing private property from being developed. Wow. Further down the rabbit hole we go. Wendy One weighed in. Wendy Hamilton. What'd she write?
The New Haven Hysterical Society, sorry about that. The New Haven Hysterical Society of Badass Boomers has won again.
Well, Quincion, I hope I'm saying that right. Quinkion, return the discussion back to AMDC's idea about the garden. At AMDC, I agree with your point. It would be a nice space to have there be a little park where people can sit or walk around and enjoy beautiful nature. But I was also thinking that it might be a good spot to put a small boutique hotel too. Because I think once the Wooster Square district gets revitalized with these new apartment buildings that are being built, then that's when the area will be more attractive as a destination, basically like downtown. For that reason, I think it would make more sense to have a hotel be there. Now, weighing into everybody is our man in the clutch, 1644. What did he write at 11:40 a.m.?
Ryan / AMDC, precisely. If the Worcester Square Association wants the parcel turned into a pocket park, it should make the owner an offer. Obviously, the owner has no emotional attachment to the land and just wants to maximize his profits. So I am sure it would sell for a fair price. The association would then, of course, have to commit to perpetual maintenance of the park. Come on. Do we need another park right there?
Well, that's the point. I forgot to copy that comment. There was another great point someone made. It's 2 blocks from Wooster Square Park.
Do we need
and then another 2 blocks from Lindsay Park. It's a couple blocks from the Green. There are a lot. I mean, it is great to have pocket parks, little parks. There are a lot. And there's also the dog park. There are a lot of green spaces there.
Yeah,
that
makes
sense. But 16.4 was basically saying put your money where your mouth is.
Yes.
You know, you go from story to story in New Haven and the Independent.
I think
people have a lot to say about parks, about schools, about taxes, about e-cigarettes. I've really enjoyed, Harry, reading some of these comments a lot. I think the commenters make our site. They're so interesting. Whether I agree with them or not, they really make the conversation lively, take it to a new level. And I've enjoyed reading them out loud with you today and taking it to another level.
I think the New Haven Independent actually serves as, kind of the people actually getting their mind, the words out of their heads and relieving themselves. Oh, it sounds funny, right? Relieving
it
themselves.
Is, though. It's true.
But it is relieving themselves on the New Haven Independence page, because a lot of these people wait for each other to comment.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That's discussion. I like that.
Right.
Sometimes they say, hey, wait, I haven't heard from Three Fists yet.
Exactly. They're waiting for each other to comment. It's almost like they're trolling each other, but not exactly.
But they're talking about ideas.
Right.
They want to hear what Christian Bruckhart, the
It's an exchange of ideas,
yeah.
which makes it better than trolling. But they are kind of waiting on each other to
we
comment.
get rid of the trolling. Yeah, we try to. Yeah, I love it, Harry. Well, thank you, Harry, and I look forward to your show later. And thanks, everybody, for joining us on WNHH-FM's Dateline New Haven. And thanks to all the commenters who make the Independent worth putting out every day. We're going to take it out with the Afro-Semitic Experience, performing I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free. From the group CD, A Plea for Peace. I got an idea. Let's close our eyes and dream what it would be like to be free. Then let's book our flight. Fly free with us all day and all night long here at WNHH, New Haven's home for community radio.